Okay, thank you. Sounds good, JD Vance. Happy to give insight. Anytime you need it, you just call me, and more than happy. Oh, you know what? I'm filming something. I gotta go. Thank you, though. All right, Vice President of the United States. Thank you. What's up, YouTube fam? Welcome to the Jonathan Dearman Show, the least political show on YouTube, coming to you from my studio today, designed specifically to look like an affordable vehicle. And today I want to live up to that slogan, hopefully, which is what I always say, the least political show. I've also said that the goal of this channel is to be more loyal to principles than political parties. And again, I hope I live up to that as I recap this whole Jimmy Kimmel situation where obviously he got pulled off the air. There was a big uproar, mostly from the left, and then he's been brought back on the air and has made some returning comments, which I will react to in this video. But let me first say that the goal of this channel when I started it years ago was that this would be a place where I would do the best I can to draw my battle lines, not based on any political party stance, but based on principles, which for me are derived ultimately from the Bible as a Christian. It's unfortunate that the culture that we live in, it seems like people draw their battle lines of what they stand up for simply based on what advances their own political party. And I think that's both intellectually and morally lazy, and I think it's just wrong. And so my goal is to be honest and consistent, and I'm not perfect at it, but I am someone who is conservative. But my goal is to be able to give my principled opinion, whether or not it cuts for or against the Republican or Democratic Party. And so this happened when I posted my most recent short about Jimmy Kimmel. It was actually one of my most disliked shorts I've ever posted. And I think the reason is because as a conservative, I think most of my audience is probably conservative. And I actually stood up for the fact that I think the government, the FCC, should not have been involved at all in that process. And I am going to double down on that. I'm not trying to win a popularity contest with these videos. That's just for whatever reason, that just does not interest me to try to just grow this thing large by appealing to whatever narrative I feel the people that I'm talking to want to hear. I'm going to say what I believe is right regardless. And that's not, I hope that doesn't come across arrogant, like I know what's right and I'm going to stand up. I'm just saying I'm going to do the best that I can to be consistent with principles, whether or not it's what most people would agree with or want to hear. I'm going to do my best. I believe that it was wrong for the government to get involved of pulling Jimmy Kimmel off the air. And here's why. Let me just recap my position on this. And then before I do that, actually, let's watch the comment that got Jimmy Kimmel pulled off in the first place.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. You can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction.
Okay, so let me address this two different things. One, his joke about President Trump's response, and then also the thing where he said MAGA is trying to identify the shooter as not MAGA. The President Trump response, honestly, I think that was a poor response from President Trump. Was that like within 24 or 48 hours after Charlie Kirk died? Or was killed, I should say. I was still like so shaken up by it that I was disappointed to see the president's response, which seemed numb in some ways to the severity of the situation. Now, I'm not saying that the president didn't really care. I believe he did. I believe that he was close to Charlie Kirk. I'm just saying the response wasn't a good look. On the second thing, though, which is the more troubling comment to me for multiple reasons, I thought the comment about him saying that MAGA is trying to identify the shooter as anything but MAGA or anything but one of them, I thought that comment was trash. And by the way, let me just say, I'm not a Jimmy Kimmel supporter at all. I think he's one of the most politically biased people that I can think of, super biased to the left, hardly ever has conservative voices on his show. And so I'm not a Jimmy Kimmel fan. And I thought this thing that he said was trash for two reasons. One, I do think it was insensitive. It was very fast after Charlie Kirk's murder that he started to say these things. And I just think that was not sensitive to the severity of the situation. The second one, which I have an even greater issue with, is that it was just completely inaccurate. The implication behind it was that this shooter was a MAGA person and that MAGA people are trying to scramble to figure out ways to not present it that way. And that's just totally wrong. That's a total mischaracterization of the situation. The person was obviously radicalized by the left. That's proven by text messages. That's proven by what they wrote on the bullet casings. That it's just, there's so much evidence to say that. And honestly, even before evidence comes out, you kind of don't need a lot of evidence to already have I believe, a reasonable assumption that the person that shot him is somebody on the left. I mean, I would think if there was some politically left figure that was super strong on the political left and they were shot at, I would assume it's probably someone on the right, right? I mean, it's just kind of obvious that the person probably didn't agree with their positions and were opposed to it, most likely on the opposite side. So I think that's just obvious, and I think that statement was ridiculous. Here's where I stand, though. Here's the issue I had. If Jimmy Kimmel was pulled off of the air because there was societal pushback, there was an uproar from audience members, and the executives didn't like what he said and they think it misrepresented their networks, great. I'm all for that. Let them go. People can be let go either on the right or the left by employers. It's a free country in that way. Employers don't have to keep you employed. And I'm all for that. I think there should be societal ramifications. Like, for example, there are a lot of people that were celebrating Charlie Kirk's death that lost their jobs. Good. That's totally great with me, because I wouldn't want to employ somebody that was celebrating anyone's death, including Charlie Kirk's death. So I have no issue with that at all. Here's where it gets murky, though. The FCC, which is a governmental organization, started pushing and threatening right before Jimmy Kimmel was let go. Does that mean that he was let go because of the FCC? No, we don't know, because we're not in the behind the scenes conversation. But at the very least, it muddies the waters. But it could also be that that's why. The FCC chair said something to the effect with regards to the Jimmy Kimmel situation, that we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And the networks need to make a merger, which I think is a $6.5 billion merger, and they need the FCC to approve it. Again, the FCC being a governmental organization.
But frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
The FCC does have some regulatory things that they do for broadcasting. Like, for example, they would step in if a channel was trying to broadcast pornography, or they have some regulations around profanity and how much profanity you can use. And those are acceptable, agreed upon limits that are applied regardless of what side you're coming from. What I don't like at all is the FCC stepping in and trying to monitor either what's considered hate speech or an evil take or even misrepresentations. The FCC has very strict standards of when they step in. I specifically do not want to give the government, through the FCC or any other organization, a hammer or the power to whack things that we consider are evil or misrepresenting takes, because that will cut to both sides, guys. That we don't want the government to have that much power. If someone is saying something gross and disgusting, let them be held accountable by the uproar, by the market, which often corrects for these things, not always, but often does. Not because the government stepped in and deemed it as evil enough or bad enough to try to threaten, because that will be a game that will be played on both sides, and the Overton window of what's accepted will just shrink and shrink and shrink, because there are a lot of people that will consider things evil or hate speech or misrepresentations that you and me may not consider that. I'll give you an example. The people that are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, they're not celebrating his death because they acknowledge he was good, but we're evil people and we hate good. In their mind, they're celebrating because they think he was evil and they're good, which to me is so backwards on so many levels. But we don't want to give the government power to crack down on things that we deem as evil or mischaracterizing or wrong, because that will be used on all sides against everyone. Let the market correct. And so this is my opinion. This is the take that I have, that I will double down on, and I could even be wrong, but this is just me being honest. I did not like that he got pulled off the air, possibly because of the FCC. Again, if it wasn't the FCC involvement, if they didn't say anything, then I wouldn't have anything to say against this. That's just the market reacting. That's just when you say trash things, you're going to be thrown out because you're giving off ideas and you're speaking in ways that don't represent your company or what the audience wants to hear. And I'm all for that. But I am not for the way that President Trump got involved in this and is calling for him to be fired. And I'm not for the way the FCC started threatening. I think it's bad for the country. I would love to hear if you agree with me or not, but that's my take. Okay, so as Jimmy Kimmel returned, though, he gave a speech and monologue that to me, overall, was not that bad. Okay, I'm trying to be honest and integrous here. Just because I'm not a Jimmy Kimmel fan or supporter and I disagree so much of what he stands for, doesn't mean that I have to stamp everything he says as bad. Some things are bad, some things are good, and some things are in between. And I thought that this speech that he gave was not all that bad. In fact, it felt genuine. Maybe I'm just gullible, but I appreciated what he said when he talked about Charlie Kirk and not trying to be insensitive to that. Take a look.
I've been hearing a lot about what I need to say and do tonight. And the truth is, I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human. And that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way.
Okay, now you may deem that as crocodile tears, as just being fake sad. To me, it felt genuine, and it seemed like he really did care that a young man was murdered, even that he disagrees with, and I appreciated him saying that. He also acknowledged some conservatives that stood up against the FCC's involvement here.
Maybe most of all, I want to thank the people who don't support my show and what I believe, but support my right to share those beliefs anyway. People who I never would have imagined, like Ben Shapiro, Clay Travis, Candace Owens, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, even my old pal Ted Cruz.
Okay, I appreciated that he acknowledged some things he likes about the other side. The most confusing thing to me about that statement was that he didn't throw me in there, even though I made a short about it. I don't know if it's spite. I don't know if it's intimidation, maybe jealousy of my platform or position, but I would have thought he would have brought up my short, but no hard feelings there. Now, it would be very easy for me to pick apart the entire speech and to roast everything that I disagree with. And again, I disagree with almost everything with Jimmy Kimmel. However, here would be my plea. My plea to all of you watching, whether you're politically right or left, would be that we would be gracious, consistent, loving, and filled with truth. When we judge people or when we determine our battle lines, you can have people that you disagree with holistically and then acknowledge that they said something good. And it's important to do that. And let me tell you why. When you have people on the opposite side of the political aisle that say something right, when you acknowledge and celebrate that encourages them to keep standing up for things that are right and keep saying things. But what happens to people, let's just take the left for an example. When they say things that are super left-wing, they get cheered on. When they say things that are more reasonable and more centered, then the left pounds them because they're not going along with the party lines, and the right pounds them because you say you're just fake saying that. No, we should celebrate when people say things that are reasonable, even if you disagree with them. Just if you're not a Trump supporter, that doesn't mean that you need to label every single thing that he says as evil and bad. You can be a non-Trump supporter and acknowledge that he does good things sometimes too. And same goes with Biden, and same goes with any public figure. So anyway, this was kind of a rant. I kind of rambled, but I hope you all get the picture. That's a promise you can have from me, is that I will be honest to what I believe. Whether or not you disagree with me or agree with me, I get it, and that's your right, and you have the freedom of speech to comment about how ridiculous my videos are and dislike it and all of that, and I have no problem with that. But hopefully we can all be a little bit more gracious to people and try to stand up for truth and principles regardless of which way it cuts. And I hope you hear my heart behind that. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you tuning in to The Jonathan Dearman Show, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.